There's something magnetic about a woman who knows who she is. Not because she's trying to impress anyone, not because she's chasing attention, but because she walks in the room with a quiet confidence that speaks louder than words. She doesn't play games. She doesn't need validation. And yet, men find themselves completely drawn to her. It's not about youth. It's not about trends. It's about energy, presence, and the subtle habits that make her unforgettable. You see, with experience comes a kind of grace that can't be faked. A way of speaking, smiling, listening. That leaves a lasting impact without ever trying too hard. In a world where so many chase the next thing, she becomes the thing. And that is exactly why certain women, especially those with a few more candles on the birthday cake, become irresistible. Today, we're going deep into what actually sets these women apart. The habits that men don't just notice. They remember. They crave, and they fall hard for. She embraces her sensuality without apology. It's in how she moves, not what she shows. She doesn't rely on revealing clothes, loud behavior, or flirtation that feels forced. Instead, there's a quiet magnetism about her. Her sensuality is not about seduction in the traditional sense. It's about being deeply connected to her own body, her own energy, and moving through the world with ease and self-respect. When she walks into a room, she doesn't seek to be the center of attention. Yet eyes turn toward her. She isn't trying to prove anything to anyone. She's simply being, and in that, she becomes magnetic. Her posture speaks volumes. Her gaze is soft but direct. She's aware of her body without needing to showcase it. The way she sits, the way she gestures, the way her voice slows down when she speaks, all of it carries a richness that comes only with time and self-awareness. She doesn't chase compliments. She doesn't need someone else to remind her that she's beautiful. She's spent enough years battling the unrealistic standards of the world to finally come to a place where she defines beauty for herself. That self-definition is powerful. It gives her an aura of freedom, and men are incredibly drawn to that freedom because it signals that she doesn't need anything from them. She's not looking to be saved or validated. That lack of needness is intoxicating. She can wear a simple black dress, minimal makeup, and a natural smile, and somehow command more attention than someone who's trying 10 times harder. That's the paradox. Her sensuality isn't in what she's doing. It's in what she's no longer doing. She's no longer apologizing for who she is. She's no longer trying to fit in. She's no longer molding herself to what a man might want. And in that self-honoring, she becomes irresistible. Her confidence isn't performative. It's rooted. When she touches her hair, when she crosses her legs, when she leans in during a conversation, it's not calculated. It's natural. She's in tune with her femininity, not performing it. There's a softness and a strength at the same time, which makes her presence feel layered and complex. She knows what it means to feel disconnected from herself. She's been through that, and now that she's reconnected, it shows. She laughs without holding back. She compliments others without insecurity. She takes pleasure in life's small details, the warmth of sunlight, the texture of fabric, the rhythm of a good song. And when a man is around her, he senses that she's not waiting for him to complete her world. Her world is already full. That fullness is the very thing that makes a man want to be part of it. Her sensuality is slow, steady, and intentional. She doesn't rush. She lets silence sit in a conversation when needed. She pauses before answering. She makes eye contact with calmness, not urgency. And when she touches, whether it's a light hand on the arm or a playful brush on the shoulder, it feels meaningful, not manipulative. She doesn't use her body to gain power. She owns her power, and that includes her body. She accepts her age, her shape, her scars. She doesn't try to rewind the clock. Instead, she reclaims her time. That self-possession becomes an energy that people notice immediately. It's not about age. It's about presence, and presence is timeless. She knows how to command attention by simply being in alignment with who she is. That's the kind of sensuality that doesn't fade. It deepens. She listens with presence, making a man feel deeply seen and heard. It's not just about hearing his words. It's about absorbing the message behind them. She doesn't interrupt, doesn't wait impatiently for her turn to speak, and she doesn't fill the silence with noise. Her attention is undivided, and that's rare in a world filled with distractions. When she listens, she leans in slightly, her eyes focused, her energy calm and open. There's no phone in her hand, no wandering gaze, no nervous fidgeting. She's there, fully. And that alone makes her stand out from so many others. Men, often used to being tolerated or half heard, suddenly feel like they matter in her presence. Not because she flatters them, but because she genuinely cares about what they're saying. She's learned, often through life experience, that real connection is built in moments of true attention. She's not afraid of emotions, his or hers. If he shares something vulnerable, she doesn't dismiss it or jump in with her own story. She gives space. She nods slowly. She allows him to breathe through the discomfort without trying to fix it. That kind of space feels safe, and safety is seductive. She knows that most people don't really want advice. They want to be understood. She doesn't make it about her. Even when she can relate, she doesn't hijack the moment to prove a point or tell a better story. Instead, she mirrors his emotions gently, letting him feel that he's not alone. That sense of being emotionally seen is something men rarely experience, but crave deeply. Her presence is non-judgmental. She doesn't try to label his feelings or change his perspective. If he's angry, she doesn't shame him. If he's unsure, she doesn't pressure him for certainty. She knows how to hold complexity because she's lived through her own. That maturity gives her the ability to listen with empathy instead of reaction. Even in disagreement, she remains calm. She doesn't interrupt with sarcasm or roll her eyes to show approval. She listens even when it's hard because she knows that respect matters more than always being right. That kind of emotional steadiness gives a man the freedom to open up in ways he may never have before. She asks questions, not to interrogate, but to understand. Her curiosity is gentle, never invasive. She picks up on subtle cues, remembering small details he didn't expect her to notice. Maybe the way his tone shifted when he spoke about his father. Maybe the slight pause when he mentioned his career. She catches those things, not to analyze him, but because she's present enough to feel what's not being said. That ability to listen beyond the surface builds trust, and trust lays the foundation for intimacy. She doesn't demand that he be vulnerable. She simply listens in a way that invites it. She makes him feel interesting, not by pretending, but by finding genuine value in who he is. Her reactions aren't exaggerated. When she laughs, it's real. When she smiles, it's with warmth. He senses that she isn't trying to impress him or get something from him. She's simply interested in him. That kind of validation hits differently. It's not performative. It's not strategic. It's pure presence. And that presence is powerful. It communicates that he doesn't have to compete, doesn't have to entertain, doesn't have to be more than he already is. In a world full of noise, she becomes a quiet place where he feels accepted, where he can exhale, where he can speak freely and finally feel heard. She sets boundaries like a queen, which only makes her more desirable. She doesn't scream for respect. She embodies it. She doesn't need to argue or justify every choice because her boundaries are woven into her energy, her posture, her tone. When she says no, it's not followed by guilt or over-explaining. It's a firm, graceful no that leaves no confusion. She doesn't let others dictate how she should feel, speak, or behave, and that kind of clarity is magnetic. Men are used to women who either over-accommodate or go to extremes to prove independence, but she lives in balance. She's not rude, but she's not afraid to walk away. She doesn't threaten to leave as a tactic. She simply won't stay where she's disrespected. Her boundaries are not walls, they're doors. Clear entry points for the right people and firm exits for those who cross the line. She doesn't do emotional labor for people who refuse to meet her halfway. If a man plays games, she doesn't chase. If he avoids commitment, she doesn't beg for clarity. She doesn't teach grown men how to treat her. She shows them through how she treats herself. That quiet self-discipline is more powerful than any dramatic demand. She knows that allowing poor behavior only trains people to continue it, so she stops it early. Not with punishment, but with unwavering standards. And because her standards aren't just words, but consistent actions, people around her rise to meet them or fall away on their own. She's not reactive. She doesn't let temporary feelings dictate permanent choices. If something bothers her, she takes a breath, reflects, and then speaks. She communicates her boundaries directly and with compassion, not as ultimatums, but as expressions of self-respect. If she needs space, she takes it. If she wants clarity, she asks for it. She doesn't leave people guessing, but she also doesn't over-explain or apologize for her needs. That level of emotional maturity is attractive because it offers both safety and challenge. She's not unpredictable in the way that creates course. She's unpredictable in the way that keeps a man curious, wondering how she remains so composed, so grounded, so untouchable in the best possible way. She doesn't confuse love with sacrifice. She knows that healthy connection doesn't require self-abandonment. If a relationship starts demanding that she shrink, hide, or settle, she steps back. She's experienced enough to know that losing herself for someone else's comfort is not love. It's a slow erasure. And she's done with that. Her boundaries protect her joy, her peace, her energy. They allow her to give generously from a full cup, not from exhaustion or obligation. When she gives, it's because she wants to, not because she's afraid of losing someone. That makes her love feel clean, not transactional. She doesn't explain her worth. She lives it. Men sense that she's not accessible to just anyone, not because she's playing hard to get, but because she actually is self-selective. She knows that not everyone deserves access to her time, energy, or body, and she's okay with being misunderstood by those who don't get it. Her boundaries aren't there to offend. They're there to protect everything she's worked so hard to build within herself. That kind of conviction in a woman is incredibly rare and incredibly attractive. It challenges a man to come correct, to step up, to respect not just her, but himself in her presence. She doesn't flinch when someone walks away. She knows that anyone who leaves because she enforced a boundary was never really there for the right reasons. She values connection, but not at the cost of her self-respect. And in that deep sense of self-trust, she radiates a kind of authority that draws the right kind of man in. One who doesn't see her boundaries as resistance, but as a map to her worth. She radiates emotional stability, calm, collected, and centered. She's not swayed by every mood, every conflict, every unpredictable wave that life brings. She's seen enough to know that emotions are like weather. They come and go, but they don't define the whole climate. She allows herself to deeply without letting those feelings control her actions. That emotional self-control is not coldness. It's strength. A strength that makes the people around her feel safe. She doesn't react impulsively. She pauses, breathes, considers. And when she speaks, her words carry weight because they aren't laced with chaos or need. Her emotional clarity cuts through noise like a quiet melody in a crowded room. She knows how to hold space for other people's emotions without absorbing them as her own. She doesn't spiral when someone else is struggling. She listens with compassion, responds with kindness, but she remains grounded in herself. She's been through heartbreak, disappointment, loss, and rather than let those experiences make her bitter or fearful, she used them to build emotional muscles. Now, when life tests her, she bends but doesn't break. That resilience becomes part of her aura. Men notice it, even if they don't know how to name it. They feel calmer around her. They feel more centered just being in her presence, because she doesn't demand emotional rescue, nor does she offer herself as a savior. She simply is. A lighthouse, steady and unwavering. She doesn't create unnecessary drama. She doesn't need attention through conflict. If she feels hurt, she expresses it directly, not through manipulation or silent punishment. If something bothers her, she addresses it maturely. Not with blame, but with ownership. This is how I feel. Not, you made me feel this. That kind of communication is rare, and it makes intimacy easier, safer, and more nourishing. A man doesn't have to guess what she's thinking or walk on eggshells, because her emotional world is accessible, not a minefield. She's not fragile, not explosive, not erratic. She's balanced. And balance is magnetic. When she feels joy, she embraces it fully. When she feels pain, she allows herself to move through it without becoming it. She doesn't suppress or overact. She regulates. That regulation didn't come from books. It came from experience. She's learned how to soothe herself, how to calm her own nervous system, how to not make someone else responsible for her happiness. That self-soothing creates space in a relationship for real connection instead of codependence. She can be soft without being unstable. She can be vulnerable without being emotionally demanding. And that blend of softness and strength gives her emotional presence a kind of rare grace. Men find themselves drawn to her not just because she looks calm, but because she feels calm. When he speaks, she doesn't immediately take offense or jump to conclusions. She listens, processes, and then responds. That pause, the ability to think before reacting, creates trust. He feels like he can be honest, even when it's messy. He knows she won't weaponize his words later or twist them into emotional ammunition. That kind of emotional consistency allows deeper intimacy to grow, because trust thrives where reactivity dies. She doesn't ride emotional highs and lows like a roller coaster. She knows how to center herself. Whether she's dealing with conflict, waiting for clarity, or facing uncertainty, she doesn't unravel. That doesn't mean she's emotionalist. It means she's practiced. She's cultivated emotional maturity through reflection, healing, and self-awareness. And now, that internal calm isn't just a skill. It's a lifestyle, one that makes her a rare presence in a chaotic world. She challenges a man to rise, not through pressure, but through quiet strength. She doesn't demand that he be more. She simply is more, and that inspires him. Her standards are evident not just in what she says, but in how she lives. She's not trying to fix or change anyone. She doesn't hand out ultimatums or create emotional ultimatums to force growth. Instead, she holds herself to a high standard and lets her energy speak for itself. A man feels that he has to show up differently around her, not because she's pushing him, but because her presence makes anything less than full integrity feel out of place. She sees his potential without making it her job to unlock it. That faith alone becomes a powerful motivator. She doesn't play small to protect a man's ego. She doesn't dim her light so he can feel brighter. She stands in her fullness, her ideas, her confidence, her self-worth. And she does so without arrogance. Her strength is not loud, but it's unmistakable. It's in her clarity when she speaks, the way she takes responsibility for her own life, the way she refuses to settle for less than alignment. She makes excellence look effortless, not because she's perfect, but because she's consistent. She honors her own word. She finishes what she starts. She doesn't procrastinate on her growth or wait for someone to give her permission. That mindset becomes contagious. A man around her begins to reflect on where he's coasting, not because she calls it out, but because her presence highlights what's possible when someone lives with purpose. She doesn't tolerate excuses. Not from herself and not from others. But she doesn't shame people for falling short either. She knows how to hold accountability with compassion. If a man says he'll do something and doesn't follow through, she doesn't explode in anger or stew in silence. She calmly addresses it and sets a clear boundary around what she accepts in her life. That level of emotional discipline is powerful. It shows that she's not just talking about growth, she's living it. And because she holds herself to that same standard, her expectations feel fair, not unrealistic. A man doesn't feel micromanaged. He feels invited to be his best self. She celebrates progress, not just results. She notices the little things. Mindset shift, a new habit, a thoughtful effort. She doesn't expect perfection, but she respects momentum. Her presence becomes a mirror that shows a man who he could be if he stopped playing small. And she doesn't force him to step up. She simply makes it clear that she won't shrink down. That quiet insistence on self, respect, and mutual elevation creates an atmosphere where growth becomes the natural rhythm of the relationship. She's not intimidated by a man's success, and she's not impressed by surface-level achievements either. What she values is character, purpose, alignment. She can see through charm and titles. She looks for integrity, consistency, and emotional maturity. That discernment keeps low-effort energy away from her life. Men sense that she's not someone they can fool with half-truths or shallow efforts. She requires depth, not in a demanding way, but because she embodies it herself. Her emotional depth, her lived wisdom, her spiritual intelligence. All of it calls a man to meet her at that level or move on. She lives with intention. Her life has structure, purpose, and flow. She takes care of her health, her mind, her surroundings, not obsessively, but intentionally. A man observing her realizes that she doesn't just attract peace, she creates it. And that creative energy calls him forward. It doesn't shame or guilt him. It doesn't overwhelm him. It simply holds up a standard and says, here is where I live. If you want to join me here, bring your best.